Good morning, everybody. It is morning. Yeah, 10:36. I'm kicking butt. Kicking butt. It is Sunday morning. I got my buddy Rhett. Everything is good. I've taken the dogs to the park, so they're all twice. I did it yesterday in the rain after, and then today. Oh man, I have been in a just I don't know how you describe it, but like it's clear that my some of my foundational holy cow, she was chewing on her nut. It literally flew right by me, a part piece of it, fragment, and went over there. um like a foundational belief that I have, I think might be wrong. It's like kind of crazy. And I will say that, like, when I first started coding and stuff, like something like this would have literally made me mad. And then I would say that, like, maybe a year ago, maybe 5 years ago, I kind of became like sort of indifferent, like almost numb to the idea that, yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff I don't understand and I just need to get over it. And then I got to where I was a little bit happy every time I would sort of find one of these big holes. It was just like, now I would say my biggest feeling when I find something like this, where it's just like, when I come across something and it's like I've had a strong, long belief that certain things work a certain way, and then I find out they don't work that way, um, I feel a sense of relief, because that does mean that you're still growing. So that's kind of like, I don't know, like if you're driving and you're like, oh, I just saw another mile marker. Okay, okay, good. It means and it's less than, it's going in the direction. I'm trying to get to exit 533, and I was at mile marker 550, and now I'm at 549. So everything seems like it's good. This is like a mile marker for me. And the thing is, and let's just double check that it is, because like, things change. Uh, I if I do this, if I take this animation service and I inject it into this mesh service, then I believe when it rebuilds, yeah, it breaks. And it doesn't break from the like, the compiler doesn't catch the problem. It's the runtime. It's like something breaks in the runtime. So let's just double check, because sometimes back in the day it used to be that, like, many things you would change would only break the transpiler the when you started, not if it was like on a hot reload. If it was like a hot reload, yeah. So see, it was perfectly happy. Everything seems good. It, but now it's no longer building. And I don't know that I've ever worked at a place where we don't run into this problem. And nobody understands it. So, like, it's just very confusing. But if you do look in the console, you see this circular dependency detected, and for animation service. And then literally all we have to do is remove this, and then that problem goes away. And everything is happy. Now, so this video, maybe the next few videos, are literally going to be a complete detour. Like, this is an issue that I truly want to understand. It's foundationally part of something that a misunderstanding that I've had for decades, or at least a decade. And I would like to fix it, because I'm tired of being, like, terrified at work, at a job, in an enterprise or a large application, and this creeps up, and it's just like, what the heck is this? So I want to, first of all, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is it that I believe that is wrong? And my general belief, I think, that is wrong is that, um, so these services, if I try to think about it in terms of, like, real life, I like to think of, like, real life things. So let's say I have a house, an actual house, and the house knows how to unlock a door. And it knows how to unlock its door, but it actually has all the knowledge it takes to take any door and unlock the door. And then I have a car, and I have my car, it knows how to start. Now, if I want my house to be able to start my car, so I want to be able to sit in my bedroom and hit a button and my car starts, then my house needs an instance of the car. So they can be like, hey, hey, car, here's this function. Can you go ahead and start it? And then if it's like, let's say my house knows how to unlock the front door. Let's say I want to have a button in my car that unlocks the front door of the house. So, when I drive up, I can just push the button. I can walk into the house. I don't have to fumble with my key. I can just push the button in my car. And so I need an instance of the house. That whole concept is screwed up. Or incomplete, very, very incomplete, because this is what I'm trying to do. Like my animation service, I want to be able to do animation things from the mesh service. I want to be able to say, hey, I'm the mesh service. Have a mesh. Do you mind animating this for me? That should be a fine. That should be a fine. And then the animation service wants to be able to say, hey, I have a mesh ID. Do you mind giving me for this ID, can you just give me a whole object? But I can't do that. And I can't do that because I get this circular dependency. So that's what I believe now. So that's my new belief. But the problem is that I don't actually know if that's true or not. It just makes sense. And just because something makes sense doesn't mean that it's true. So that is sort of like literally for the last 15 hours, 16 hours, I even dreamt about it last night. Um, Something I've just been trying to reconfigure. And it's crazy because I'm actually starting to do a lot of things that I don't ever do. So it's actually in some ways destabilized me, in that, not like from a emotional perspective, but like I always take my wallet out when I get home. And I left my wallet in my pants last night. That is just a bizarre behavior for me. That's like for 30 years so like this, I can sense that something in my brain is like refactoring, and it is having unexpected results. But I think it's like one of the most biggest mistakes that I see people make all the time is that, yes, now I have an explanation that sort of describes what we're observing here, but I don't know if that is in fact the actual reason. And so the next step is like, okay, so let's go ahead. Okay, well, let's kind of flesh out what's going on. So I absolutely do need to be able to get IDs from need to be able to take IDs and get objects for them. So why? What got me there? Like, oh my God, why would I have this? Why would that be an issue? And it's another I'm starting to go back. I'm starting to realize, oh, there's another disconnect in my brain. And that other disconnect is I, okay, so what you will see a lot is particularly in JavaScript, and I think more so in Angular than any other thing I've ever worked with, is we tend to make references to objects and keep references to those objects, which is a bit risky. And but the so in JavaScript, we like to do, or we kind of have to do, what the heck? Let me hit Control Z. Okay. We like to do, or we kind of have to do stuff like this, where we take an object and then we create an object. And this is called an object literal. But it's easy to kind of conflate this concept with JSON. So let's see. If we look in here, we will see that we have like an angular.json. So it's easy to conflate, to combine this JSON concept to this JavaScript literal concept. It's easy just to do that. But the problem with that is, okay, so yes, and then there's a library called JSON, and it's capital JSON. And this JSON has a couple of things, a couple of functions, and this function is called parse. So this parse function is designed to take a string and convert it into an object. So it basically um, will make, like if I say JSON parse and then that, I think I can do that. I haven't tried that in a long time. Oh, it's got to be a string. That, and I say const a equals JSON parse this, and what it'll do is it'll create me an empty string, and I think I can even be like this, like type. I think I could say type colon. I don't do this very often, and then stmesh. Oh, I gotta put single quotes. And so I'm kind of just exploring, right? Right now, I have identified that I have a massive disconnect in my brain, misunderstanding of how something works in my brain, and I'm trying to figure out how to connect those dots, and so that I can be a better developer, have more understanding of what's going on, have a more pleasant day. Back before I started kind of breaking things down like this, and kind of on my own time, just sort of digging in and understanding how things work. Every day of work was just like a terrifying experience. And now every day at work, ever since I started doing this, my days of work are a lot more enjoyable. Um, and a lot of times I feel great after work. But I remember when, like, literally, like, it was just like, oh God, I'm just gonna be so afraid. I can't believe work's about to start. Oh God, because I would just be confused all day. So, anyways, the idea is that, like, this right here, this is a JSON string, and this is JSON. But this up here is a JSON, a JavaScript literal. This is a JavaScript literal, and this is a JavaScript, a JSON, a string that respects JSON, like, or that aligns with JSON, or is basically, but so anyways, this will create an object. So in some ways you're like, oh, okay, so this is good because, we can always go back and forth. And this I could easily, there's another way around, and it's like const b. And it says JSON dot stringify. And this will take like an actual JSON object and turn it into a string. Now, this is where if you, as I have up until yesterday, and it's kind of funny because this is only tangent is not directly related to this issue, but I've seen this situation. But like if you say that, um, so something that you can do in this, that you can do in this, that you cannot do in this, is you can make a variable that um, that is a reference. So I'm going to, just for the sake of this, I'm just thinking out loud, I'm going to change this to an any, right? Any. Well, I shouldn't do that. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new object, literal JSON, JavaScript object literal. And I think that is actually JavaScript object literal notation. I'm not sure the cons. My stuff equals, and I'm going to say this is an any, and it equals, and then uh, uh, greeting, and hello. All right, so basically this is what I have in my stuff. Hello. And this is like sort of a pattern that I run through all the time, so I'm just sort of thinking out loud again. Um, but like, so let's say I create another variable and I say const my greeting. And then I say it's my stuff dot hello. Now let's say at some point I go, you know what? I would like to have a greet count. So I'm going to add this greeting count. And it's this, we're going to default it to 0. And then let's say I say console log maybe this is not going to work. My greeting. So I've actually used hello, but hello, okay, that should not be a function. But hello is not like, it doesn't know how, it doesn't know who its parent is, right? Like it doesn't have any sort of like self-reference. And so what I could do is I could say me. And then I could do this. I could do this. I can't, that would be weird. But I can do this. My stuff dot me is equal to my stuff. I believe I can do this. You know what? I've never actually tried this. Or if I have tried it, it wasn't as obvious. Okay, so I can give myself a reference to myself. There's no problem with that. Where we run into problems is if I try to JSON stringify my stuff. If I want to turn it into a string, right? I don't think I'll have a a a transpile issue. I won't have a build issue, but um, I will. It won't. Yeah. I don't think it'll work because let's see, F12. Mesh service. Do we not ever do? Maybe we probably don't. Well, did I get that compile? And see, this is the thing. Okay, so it doesn't look like I ever run this thing. Okay, so if I add one of these. Yeah, so here we go. Well, we have a syntax error on line 64. Here, so it's saying there's something wrong with, maybe this needs to also have, okay, what's the syntax error? Let's see, expected expected property name or at position 1. So it seems like it's upset. Maybe this needs to also be in quotes. Save 12. Still upset about that. I don't understand that. Type. Okay. Let's ask ChatGPT for a little bit of help. A little help, please. I guess I should do this. So can you see what is wrong with this JS? It just will throw it. This string is not valid. So it's saying this is not valid. JSON. Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so, or I could do that. Okay, so it doesn't like the fact that, and see, this is something I didn't know, but it doesn't like um, these being single quotes. My gosh, what is going on here? Oh, I'm not in. That's hilarious. All right. So basically, this can't be a single quote, uh, or apostrophe or whatever you call it. Um, it has to be a double quote or a quote, if you just depending on how you see that word. All right. That is, yeah. So basically, we're seeing a very, very similar error, right? Converting circular JSON, and that's because your this like when this tries to turn this to a string, it sort of like it me is a reference back to itself, so it would kind of do like an infinite loop where if it actually did keep going, it would go like, and there were times it used to be like, oh, it'll only go three deep or something, and it would just sort of take care of itself. But this breaks because basically there's like a difference. One is like a string, one is for like data that you're going to put into a string, and then one is for data that you're actually using in real time. And maybe this is kind of like a weird kind of thing that kind of came about because like we don't actually like it probably would be better if like, and this is like crazy, right? Like, but like if like every one of these had like an address property, it was just built in. Like that's the way that it did it, and you didn't, you couldn't write it. You couldn't change it, right? So address is 0001, and then um, I wonder why it won't allow that. Does it have to be a quote? And then like this was reserved, and this was its actual address, and then like this thing, instead of my greeting, my stuff being uh, me being my stuff, it would be this address. It would actually have the address to itself, but it'd be like, so then you're like, since you would have that, then it could just type the address of wherever it was pointing at, and you could turn that into JSON. But it was just a decision, a decision that the folks that invented JavaScript, or the guy that invented JavaScript, he decided to go this way, which if you're just going to look results, his implementation not doing this, because this would be the more traditional way of doing it when he wrote the language. When he wrote the language, everything was a lot of things were about like having the actual, what did they used to call it? The pointer. It was called a pointer in a lot of languages, having which was basically just the address to it. So, anyways, we see a very similar error when we do this. So my only where I'm at right now at this moment is that it seems like when I do, let's go ahead and get rid of me. Oh, and so the reason you'd want this is so unless then you could say um, like const me is equal to my stuff, right? So so now I have my own like kind of the reference to myself. So, and this isn't really like something that you see like two levels down. It'll be like three or four levels down where you're like, oh, down here, I really need to know what the very top is. Um, and so I'll just create a reference to what the very my instance is. So then you could say, oh, okay, so me dot greeting count, and then plus plus, right? So then you'd be able to like update things properly. And like I said, this is kind of an overly simple example of it, but like if you look at our uh, interfaces, and you go to like our ST interface and you go to like, I think visualization's the one at the very top, right? Like, yeah, this is a good one, right? Because basically it has a renderer ID. So if we go look in the renderer, I think it's three, yeah, renderer, then we look in here and then the renderer has a scene ID. And then if we go look at scene, um, alphabetical order, then the scene has some meshes. And so let's say yeah, it has some meshes. So let's say we were like, oh, okay, I want to know what my visualization is or my renderer is. I could have like an actual link. I could actually create like an actual link to the renderer, right? I could just be like, oh, okay, render and then equals st renderer, right? So like I could create an actual um, link to the renderer, but the problem is, or I could actually, even better is I could actually have a link to the scene, and instead of the scene ID, I could actually have the scene there. But that only works in the Java script object literal concept world, right? When you're actually talking about actual JavaScript objects, that only works. But you can't export that. You can't turn that into a JSON. So that's why I ended up going down this scene, this ID world where I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep an ID because then I can kind of create all these structures and then link to the actual structure descriptions, not the actual structures. And then what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to take that structure of structures and all those links to those descriptions, and I could create my own version of the of it, you know. So that's great when you're actually looking at the real ones, but you can't. Yeah, right. Like the actual instances of the objects, then it makes a lot of sense. But if you're only looking at the IDs, I mean, but if you're trying to turn this into a string or serialize it would be another word. Um, when you're trying to do that, um, you you can't actually reference actual instances because they don't actually exist in the text, right? And so I think that we must be running up on something like that. Like that is like in my mind, that is what we're when we this looks so darn similar. Just undo this. I think I can just hit Control Z because I want to undo everything I've done in this session, but not necessarily every change. Okay, so if I hit save and we're back to here, and now when I do this and I uncomment that, then everything breaks. And if you look at the error, it looks very similar. Circular digits tend depend. It seems like the same type of issue. So my concept of, oh, okay, I have a house and the house knows how to open the front door. I have a car, the car knows how to start. I'd like to start the car from the house. So let me get an instance of the car in the house. The I'd like to open the front door from the car. So I need an instance of the house. Wait, no, now I have a circular dependency issue. So that's what I believe I have going on right now. But that is basically, in most human terms, something you'd call a baseless accusation. Or at best, if you want to be nice, is if you want to be nice about it, you could say that is a hypothesis. I've made a hypothesis, but I have not tested it and I have not run it by anybody else. It's just my own hypothesis. And if it's wrong, then another word for that would be my own delusion. Um, so, like it is possible, and I have to recognize the fact that I might just be delusional here. I might have made up this whole story, this whole narrative, and it's all just a giant delusion. And I can't even tell you how many times I've done this. And I can't even tell you how many times I've seen this happen in a group and been part of this happening as a group. Like, so five of us developers are all absolutely convinced this is true. And then we move forward, we start coding like this is true, and we never ever actually validated that it was actually true. So how can we test? How can we? Oh, and then another way to do it is we could call it a baseless accusation or a wild ass guess. But what we what I do know is I do not know this for a fact, and that I have not done anything to demonstrate this other than comment this out and see that the problem went away and see that those words are sort of similar and that I did a really good job of understanding circular dependencies in JSON. So it must be the same. And that's false. It's false, 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 false. It could be true. In all likelihood, I think I'm right, but it would not stun me or shock me to find out that I'm wrong. And I have been way more sure about things in the past and been wrong. So it's time to so if I was at work, I would just move on. I would kind of see if I could just create a class like I was doing, like I would move forward, would keep the ball moving forward by seeing if I can create a class and pull out the things that kind of separate the things. So there's stateless information for the dictionary, and um, then there's like how to do things. And at some point, I still think I'm going to run into this issue. Like, I think all I will have, if this does in fact work, all I have done is sort of kick the greater can down the road, because I think everything at some point is going to need to know how to get an instance of whatever. Now, I might actually have like an escape valve, and that is to absolutely positively misuse something. And and don't get me wrong, I've seen this a million times before, but I could actually, in fact, misuse this thing, this recyclable sequence service. It actually has the ability to give me an actual instance of, so like I could go and pull in the recyclable sequence. And I don't think the recyclables, well, no, the recyclable sequence, I think, actually does pull in everything. Let's go look at that. No, it does not. Okay, so that's wonderful, right? So this would work, right? So like let's say we had this massive application, we built it and we figured out, oh shit, we did not account for this architecturally, and why the heck does Angular even work like that? And we had a misunderstanding of how Angular works. But see, this doesn't actually ever use anything. So it actually can set type, associate. I believe it. Oh, generate. Oh, so we could actually add a function in here that says for a given ID, give me the associated object. And I do know the mesh ID. So this could actually be like our knight in shining armor, right? Like this could actually save an entire project, because we actually do have a way of getting, for a given reference, getting the object back. But man, talk about confusing ass code. I go to the recyclable sequence surface to figure out what the mesh idea is. Like that's definitely not, like if we were right at the end and this application worked perfectly except for a couple little things, sure. But we're right at the beginning, so we don't want to do that, I don't think, at this beginning part. Um, and I don't have the sense that this is a killer, but we we probably may want to, like, yeah, create some other thing that, like a facade or something that knows how to use the recyclable sequence service to get. But talk about them, what a weird ass side effect. Like in the future, if you're changing the way up the recyclable sequence service, like
I broke the animation service by just changing something in this, that would be hard. But anyway, so I think we're still going to run into issues because I think that everything is going to need a way to get the ID. But I guess if I just need a way to animation service probably will, yeah, I don't know. After it's just way too many moving parts. I can't quite put it in my head, but I do think this is so important to me personally that I do want to maybe take a complete detour at this point. Because the problem is okay, so yeah, that I think that proves it, but there's so many other things going on that you can't really be sure that it's not some other strange set of of things that happened at the same time, and then um, and now this appeared to be like that's just a shallow description of something that describes what happens, but it isn't actually correct. So, anyways, I do think that what I need to do is I need to create a little Angular application, and that little Angular application just needs to say like "Hello World" in the front, and it needs to, and then I need to create two services, um, and then I need to try to pull one, try to do this basically, inject a service into each other, um, and yeah, so try to pull, like just basically try to do this, but just with two services and see if just that alone breaks things. I don't think it would break anything because we haven't actually, in the scenario I just described, we wouldn't have actually created an instance of the services. But it is for root, so maybe we will have. See, I have a bunch of vagaries in that, and I think I've found a little place where I have a gap in my understanding, and it's such a strange gap that I don't even like have any idea if it's huge or tiny or a little misunderstanding or a gigantic misunderstanding. But I do think that it is time to do a straight up detour, um, that I have no idea. It could take 5 sessions or it could take one session, but we needed to do a little detour to figure out how in the world, or see if we can get a greater understanding of um, this circular dependency issue. And then once we have a greater understanding of it, hopefully, and there's probably a 50-50 chance on this, but hopefully there'll be a way to determine if there'll be a way we will know more and say, okay, a really good way to solve this issue is to um, do XYZ. Um, I've always wondered why in a lot of Angular applications they will have like some sort of central like ID to object sort of retrieval service that's like completely centralized. And I've always been like, man, that's such a bizarre layer of abstraction that makes things so much harder to understand. But this might actually be the reason for that. Um, and it's like one of those things where it's just like whoever implements that probably just gets something working. They kind of come up with a vague idea, write some code, sort of get it working, see that it works, and then they just move on because they're busy. Um, and and I don't even know that most people want to even acknowledge that that's sort of like getting sort of a vague idea and then writing some code and then seeing that it works and then moving on with your life without truly understanding what's going on is even possible. Like I think most people think that that's, if you get it to code and it's working, that you understand what's going on, and gosh, there's just nothing that's further from the truth. But anyway, so first thing tomorrow, my plan, I hope I can remember it, but my plan is to just create a brand new Angular application that is just for testing purposes that I intend to fully delete as soon um, as soon as it's we've learned what we need to learn. And the whole idea will be to try on a smaller thing, probably to build out like two services that can access each other's stuff, or maybe it's for services. Maybe every service needs to have a uh, a set of classes that come with it that handle these sorts of things that are just like more references on how to do things, behaviors, and that are just like kind of completely full of pure functions that don't care about state in any way, shape, or form. They just know how to do an operation on whatever you give it and return it to you. So I think that is usually called decorating, but I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, that whole thing seems to be unlocked. I've always like kind of struggled with there's like some book by the group of four, I don't know what they were called, some architects, early architects. It was written like in the 60s or the 70s, that everyone, it used to be like everybody's Bible. Um, and I think they talk about kind of some of this stuff, but it was just so abstract that I couldn't really understand it. But maybe I've unlocked some knowledge that makes it to where that would make more sense to me. But anyways, yeah, that's going to be tomorrow. We are we're on a full detour. What would we would call the? I guess I should. So I have a nice title to this um, thing. We are doing the circular ng200 circular dependency detected detour. This is what I want to understand. Now I kind of feel bad because I feel like a lot of times, like a lot of people want answers when they're searching online. They're not looking to just watch some dude just freaking um ramble on about what's going on, but I don't have answers. I have an idea, and that idea is that for some Angular specific reason, and it may not be Angular, but that's my idea. For some Angular specific reason, you cannot have two singleton objects, and then we another way to put that would be you can't have two services, and maybe those aren't the same way. So maybe those words aren't actually the same. In my mind, two singleton objects and two services are synonyms, but maybe that's not even true. You cannot have two singleton services have references to each other for some reason. And I can't think of it in my world, the way my world works, that makes no sense. That should be perfectly possible. It makes no sense that you can't do it. And but see, it's like in this injector get, retrieve, inject only, it's saying that it detected a circular dependency and it just bailed. It didn't, it like whatever, whenever they coded this stuff, this is again me just guessing and making wild, unsubstantiated accusations. Um, just like I'm just purely in the feels right now, like things that I'm just feeling and trying to understand. Um, but for some reason, the Angler people either were just like it was too complicated, like the number of like like the number of things that you have to deal with, like when you see a um, circular dependency, like there's just so many things that you kind of have to account for and stuff like that that it just wasn't worth it. Or maybe like because honestly, like you used to be able to do a JSON stringify on an object, but they would just like once it recognized a dependency, it just wouldn't, it would stop. Um, it would just stop. But then at some point, they just decided to make it a break. Like they could have figured this out, maybe they can't. But it seems like they should have been able to allow two services, yeah, two singleton services to be able to have references to each other. But maybe not. Maybe, oh, I guess I can see that because what happens, I think, is what they have is a list of services, and they have a list of services, and you can have more than one of the same service. So they actually probably don't have a way to differentiate between, like, if you have three instances of the animation service, which one would be the correct instance. Maybe that's the deal. I don't know. Like I said, that's all like stuff I just don't understand, but I would like to understand better. Um, and I'm hoping that in the process of understanding it better, I can come up with better solutions. And in real hope is that if I'm if I find myself in front of an Angular application that I don't understand, and we're starting to see this issue and we don't really get it, that I'll be able to fix it without too much pain and suffering. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.